Well, hey everyone, we are getting started on our webinar today. It's the next webinar in our monthly series of Manager 101. And today we're going to be talking about insights to empower your team leadership and development. All right, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as we get started, a couple quick housekeeping things and then something to get chatter going. Let's go ahead and turn your chat to include everyone, not just hosts and panelists, but include everybody. And then what I want to hear from you in chat as we discuss is, if you're going on vacation, are you going to the mountains or are you going to the beach? Nicole and Robin, what about you all?
Oh, beach, 100%. I mean, mountains are beautiful, but beach.
Okay. Okay.
I'm a more mountainous person, but I literally just came from the beach of last month, so it was fantastic.
Nice. I love going to the mountains, so I love going like on adventures and going to see different things. But I have learned to appreciate the pace of a beach more in recent years than I did previously. So let's see what the chat has to say. Okay, Dawn, you live at the beach, so going to the mountains is a good mix. I like it. Taylor says mountains, lots of beach. Some mountains, but mostly beach. Okay, I've been doing it wrong.
Here's my thing with beaches, though. I love beaches.
Yeah.
But I used to live in Orange County, literally at Newport Beach, and I could not stand going to the beach because it was so crowded. So I went in like times where it was sunrise or like sunset, or I never went 4th of July. I never went Memorial Day. Those holidays, no way. So how do people handle the beach? Like it's too much.
I don't know. What are some of the best tips for the beach? I think snacks are always a good idea for the beach. They're also a good idea for the mountains, though. So I don't know if that works. Robin, what about you? You said you're a fan of the beach. What are the recommendations to make that successful?
Oh man, just being there, like being on the beach and being in the water, and I can't say enough about it. I love it. Yeah. Snacks, gotta have snacks.
Always snacks.
Little shades. Snacks. You know.
A comfy chair. My favorite is when we go to beaches and we'll go on vacation. I live in the Midwest, so no coast, right? There's no coast around me. But you know how there's the people at the beach that you can pay them and they take the umbrella and the beach chairs and they set it all up for you. Mm-hmm. I'm worth it. You know, I didn't used to do it, but now I'm worth it. I'm making it happen. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm getting all sorts of good ideas.
Yeah, Dawn is with me on this one. Yeah, so let the tourists go away and find a way to get the sand off all the things.
Yep. Good notes. All right, pals. Well, let's get into this thing. So today like I said, we're talking about insights to empower your team leadership and development. So let's talk about the agenda for our time. And first, we got great people on the call, so it'd be worth introducing y'all. We'll do that here in just a moment. And then we're going to talk a little bit about why engagement matters with your team. And then the majority of our time today is not going to be a whole lot of us sharing all sorts of things and stats and all sorts of things like that. It's going to really be about having a conversation with you all and then answering questions from the people who are here joining us about how they can utilize insights to better lead and develop their teams. And so that's really going to be the priority and the primary thing that we spend our time on. So if you are joining us today and you're in the chat, feel free. You can go ahead and start sending in questions. We got a few before the webinar actually started, but feel free to send in questions that you'd love for us to answer. And then we'll do our best to answer all of those as we go. A couple other quick housekeeping items. One, we are recording this. And so what we'll do is we'll actually send this out as well as some additional resources to you either later today or tomorrow. We'll be sure and get this recording as well as those items to you. And so that way you'll have access to it and can share it if you want to see it, or maybe you registered and weren't able to attend. All right, Robin and Nicole, y'all ready to get this thing going?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Robin, as we get going, Chester, does he like the beach?
Yes.
He loves the beach.
Okay. And Chester is your
amazing dog. You guys want to meet him?
Yes.
Let's meet him. Is he there?
Okay, I love Chester.
Let's meet him.
Chester's my comfort and joy.
He's got his Hawaiian shirt on since his
Does
boat
he
is for
really?
the beach.
Oh
So,
my
yep.
goodness. Chester, the
This is
legend. This is
Chester.
he's our chief bark officer. So yep, Chester is the absolute best. I bet he has the best beach. All right. Well, let's
He
get
loves the
after it.
beach.
Here's your panelist for the day. I'll be hosting. I'm Dan Cogswell. I'm the director of customer growth here at Leadr, and I get to help with everyone who's connected to Leadr and make things happen. Nicole, you are our senior people manager. And what I would love to know is how long have you been at Leadr, and what's something you enjoy about Leadr?
Oh, yes. I'm Nicole Jordan, senior people manager, and I've been here for 2.5 years, like literally 2.5 years now. And so I came in November 2020, and I love it. The best thing I love about Leadr, people will always say the people. So that hands down, the people that you work with, the people that we work with is fantastic here.
Yeah.
But I want to say the fact that we have a great feedback culture here, that is great. It's okay for me to own my mistakes and actually make mistakes. That is huge for me, coming out of a toxic work environment that I've been under for 10 years in the past. Coming here and being able to make mistakes and be okay and still learn and grow has been huge. So that's been the biggest thing for me about Leadr.
Love it. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, isn't that a gift where,
It's
hey,
huge.
we're all working to do our best. And guess what? Every once in a while, we're going to make mistakes, but they're not mistakes as long as we can learn from them and continue to grow.
Exactly. And we keep going.
That's right. That's right. Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. I'm so glad that you're going to be with us today, especially as you're going to be able to share perspective from our actual, you sit in a people seat, like an HR seat inside of Leadr. So you have a really interesting and specific perspective that I think is going to be really helpful as we're engaging the conversation today. So thanks for making time. Robin, welcome. And also,
thank you.
How long you've been here, and tell us one of your favorite things about Leadr.
Yeah, I've been here for 2 years. I've been in software implementation for 6, and I love, I love a lot of things about Leadr, but for sure my customers are the best, and my team is pretty darn incredible. I've worked for lots of different organizations over the years, and to have a team this compassionate and supportive and love what they do as well, it's a game changer.
Yeah, love it. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks
for sharing. Well, let's hop into a little bit more of the content. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about engagement matters. But one more quick caveat before we get started. Today, the majority of our conversation is going to be about how to utilize Insights, which is a piece of the Leadr platform to lead and develop your team. So what we know is that if you're on this call, a lot of you are already Leadr customers and partners, and we're so grateful for your partnership and all the things that we get to do alongside you as you grow. But having Insights, you may or may not have it, and that's okay. So I just want to make sure this is not some sales pitch. This is not us just trying to get more people to sign up for those things. Of course, if you want to have that conversation, great, we're open to it. But we will be utilizing some screenshots and some insights from our tool and really be focusing on not just what they are, but how we utilize those to lead our partners as well as lead our team. So I just wanted to say that as we get started here, so no one's surprised about what we're going to be diving into. All right, well, let's talk about why engagement matters. So Leadr, for those who are here and know, is a people platform that makes managers better leaders. What we know is that managers are really kind of the key individuals, the key people who have the biggest impact on whether an organization is successful or not, because they're the ones who are responsible for caring for their teams and also coaching for what we're trying to accomplish and ensuring that those things happen. So making managers better leaders is what we do. I found this graphic as I was getting prepared for our webinar today, and I just thought it did a brilliant job of showing why engagement matters, because I've had lots of conversations with customers, with partners, with all sorts of people, and you all probably have too. I've never met anybody who disagrees that engagement is a good thing. Nicole or Robin, have you ever met anybody who's like, nah, engagement, no good, we don't like it?
No,
never heard it.
It's like, okay, engagement is a good thing, but why does it make such a difference? Why is there so much attention and so many articles being written by so many, leading names and people in the industry around why engagement matters and the challenge of disengagement. And so this graphic I found, it shows this idea that we're all in the same boat. And there's those who are fully engaged, who are really helping to row and push forward. There are those who are neutral. You know, they're kind of in the boat, they're along for the ride, they're probably doing their thing. And then you have some who are actively disengaged. And so getting a pulse on how engaged your people are and where you can help your managers lead your people better so that they can be more engaged is really, really important. So that's what we'll be spending time on. Okay, just a few more slides. Again, if you have thoughts as we're going through this, go ahead and drop those questions in the chat, and we'll get to those here in just a moment. But what we typically find is that when you have better leaders, you have better performance, and that people fall anywhere on this kind of quadrant of leadership, investment in your people, and leading of your people. I don't know about you all, but I have fallen in any one of these categories over the course of my career. Have you all had experienced the same thing? Or maybe you're better than you are better than I am, but you've maybe you've been way more consistent in a different area. But have you been in these different areas as well?
Oh yeah. It's like, yeah, throughout my whole career and being under different types of leadership, like I've touched and dabbled in every sphere somewhere. And sad to say, the bulldozer manager has been one of them. But I didn't realize what that was until I got out of it. And I'm like, oops, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Like, so yeah.
Good. Yeah, Robin, what about you? Have you been a different type of manager or leader in your time?
Yeah, I think I have experienced all of these from my own perspective, but I've also worked for all of these as well. And so I know when you become a leader, you don't get this magic book that automatically makes you incredible at what you're doing. You kind of have to learn on the job, right? So I think we probably are all been in the same situation of trying to find our footing and our ground. And that's why I'm just so grateful for Leadr and what we do, because it helps to really get us into that incredible place of being an amazing leader.
Yeah, it really equips us and provides a system for, I probably quote it more often than I should, but Atomic Habits, James Clear, that book is, it is the best.
So good.
But it talks about this idea that we don't rise to the level of our goals. We all want to be good leaders. Like, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what I want to be today? A really bad leader. I'm hoping that I can have a negative impact on my people, that no one will respect me, that I won't really make a difference in what I'm doing, and that I don't get my to-do list done. I don't think there's anybody who wakes up in the morning and is actively thinking, you know, I just don't want to do it today. I want to be a bad leader today. And so the quote from him about we don't rise to the level of our goals, which is we want to be good leaders. We want to be someone who is capable and influential and growing and all of those things. But what he says is we don't rise to that. We fall to the level of our systems. And so having something like Leadr in place to help encourage that and help us to provide insights is really, really important. Okay. So, here's a question I just thought of. So this is off topic, and here we go. I asked which leader you've been in the past, or which manager you've been in the past, but can you all give us a little bit of insight of, not names, but have you been impacted positively or negatively by leaders when they operate in these different quadrants?
Yes, for sure. I can think of one. I can think of one in particular from a previous role that I had at another organization, where the bulldozer was her way of leading. And it was really difficult when you just were, you know, the demands were so clear, but the engagement and the care was kind of not even a part of the conversation. And it's hard to, as an employee, to really walk into that situation and feel like I have a place in that team. It felt just like, here's what you need to do, and here's the demands I'm going to give you. So that's one of the ways that I've experienced that, to where I don't ever want to be that kind of leader.
Yeah, that's great. Nicole, what about you?
For me, it was under the loss manager. It was like, go do this. Awesome, great, thanks, bye. And I'm like, okay, can I, at least get some input or some direction? And what was told to me, if you don't hear anything from us, you're doing a great job. And I'm like, okay. well, fine, but still I'm building my own thing. Like, I guess you're guessing and hoping that I'm still in line with your vision and what you want to
Right.
do.
Right.
And so it actually made it hard to
Mm.
accept the high investment, high performance manager,
Oh, interesting.
because it felt like, oh, you're crouching in my world. But then at the same time, I felt
Mm.
like I'm giving all this work,
Yeah.
but I'm not having any investment. And so it's hard to navigate, because being under a loss manager, you get both worlds of not having any,
Mhm.
not somebody not being micromanaging.
Mhm.
But if you have that high investment manager, it will seem micromanaging because
Oh,
you're so
sure.
used to not having anything at all. And
Comparatively.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I've
Mhm.
been in the loss manager quadrant for a good bulk of my career. So
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting. Well, thanks for sharing. I know what I know is that uh, interactions with people matter, and how we're led or how we lead matters. And so paying attention to it is super important. All right. Well, let's keep moving. And then really what I'm interested in hearing from you two. I want to hear from you two about your experiences and what you engage with our partners as well as with our team. So just a couple more
Mhm.
thoughts, and then we'll get to that.
yeah.
So what, yeah, let's just skip it. All right, we're just gonna skip it. I was gonna share some stats.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. All right, that's it. That's what you need to know. All right, Robin, first question for you. This
Yes.
slide is overwhelming. Okay, this is
Mhm.
a slide that actually shows from a demo instance in our tool what insights might actually look like. And so what I'm
Mhm.
curious about, and I'd love to hear your perspective, and then obviously Nicole hop in as well, but there's a tremendous amount of information here. There's
Mhm.
all sorts of data and information included with insights. So if I
Mhm.
am brand new to Leadr or brand new to insights, where do you recommend, or where do you typically start when you're visiting with our partners?
Yeah, great question. And I can relate to this. I get this question quite often. And where I usually steer people to start when it comes to this particular side of our platform is really that people metrics that you see at the bottom of this screenshot. So you're already going to
Mhm.
have people metrics in your experience, but this is going to give you so much more detail into how Leadr is beginning. And so often with the rest of Insights, we have a survey that goes out once a month, and maybe that survey just went out for the first time. It's going to take a couple of weeks to get all of those responses back, but the people metrics are going to start right away. And so
Yeah.
automatically you can see, hey, when was their last one-on-one? How many topics have been added from the direct reports point of view and also from the manager's point of view, which I think is so helpful when it
Yeah.
comes to making sure that that conversation is not just one-sided, that both are coming together in a collaborative way. That particular piece of the data has been really helpful. You're also going to be able to see into, hey, how are the goals coming along? Do people have a goal? Have they updated it in the last 30 days, which is
Right.
really important too? Like, are they actively, pursuing that goal? There's also some information when it comes to feedback where there's a place where it's going to show how long did it take them to answer someone else's feedback, which I think is
Mm.
really helpful. Where if we're encouraging feedback and encouraging people to, share with us what they think from maybe a project we worked on or maybe an event that we're doing. But if I'm not doing my part in answering anybody else's feedback, that's a little bit of a miss too. So there's just so much information just within this people metrics that's going to come to life almost right away when you start
Right.
putting your team into the system, versus the rest of Insights. It's incredibly powerful as well, but sometimes when you first start that, that survey just takes a little bit more time to get all that information in. So this is where I would start.
Yeah, super helpful. I think something to distinguish here is that there's some indicators in other places of the tool, but this gives you,
Mhm.
it's like, instead of saying, oh, that's a car, you're like, oh, I know exactly what that car is. I can look under the hood. I can see everything that is the motor. I know everything about the car. I know what kind of stereo it has. I know all the things about it, not just that it's a car. So this is really, really
Mhm.
helpful information to what's happening here. Nicole, any other thoughts about if you were just showing somebody, hey, here's where to look inside the tool, maybe the first place that you would start?
Yeah, a lot of places actually look is in our engagement area,
Mm.
because we pull out an engagement survey every month. and it asks different questions. And so this allows me to keep a pulse on the company. It allows me to identify where our managers need coaching, and it identifies where I feel where some of our employees are struggling. And so you have your what do you call them, the titles or the different categories of, you know, clarity, rapport, maximization. And so I look at those engagement scores and those analysis, and I can look at them through by department. I can look at them by manager, and I can compare from the first month to the next month and compare and see how much has changed according to the question that was asked. So I use this a lot. That's the first place I go to, and I use it. Also use the people metrics like Robin was talking about earlier. Because if I see a correlation between the engagement analysis in a department, so I'm going to pick on my own department, the people team department. So if the people metrics are a little bit lower than last month, I'm going to have a look and say, wow, that's different. So what I'm going to do is probably have a peek in the people metrics and say, hey, how are they engaging in their one-on-ones? Are they giving feedback? Are they setting goals? Like, what's happening? And so it's just like a little flag to be like, woo, have a look at all these other things to see if there's a pattern or a trend somewhere. And so I really, really like that, especially with questions like how that in the clarity department, the clarity category of these engagement analysis is I know what success looks like in my role. And if I see a really low score across the board, or a lower score, not a really low score, just a lowered score of clarity across departments, that triggers me that I need to do some more training with our managers to say, how much clarity are you bringing to your team? Do we need to write some new job descriptions? Do we need to put some performance, some PDPs in front of people, some development plans in front of people so they know what success looks like? So that's why I love the engagement portion of Insights, but I also love our ENPS score section because it actually gives us an insight and overview of, man, would I want people to work here with me? Will I suggest this job to this company to work here? And so that's even more important as we're hiring, as we are keeping track of our attrition and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty huge. I keep my pulse on the company through Insights.
So many good things there from both of you. Okay, so let's a couple quick thoughts on what we're seeing is that trends matter, right? So it's not just we talked to plenty of organizations who maybe hire an outside consultant or somebody else to come in and effectively take a snapshot of their engagement or their culture inside of the organization, which is great. That's, I think it's helpful and healthy to do those things. What I often hear from those organizations though too is, well, we did this and then it takes us the next 6 months, year plus to actually implement any of the feedback we received or make any adjustments for what we saw. And so being able to have like a monthly view or a monthly snapshot of where things are at can be really, really helpful for understanding, is it because of the question we asked? Is it because of some direction or decisions we've made as an organization? Is it because of specific areas showing consistently low scores? And so I think there's power in not overreacting to one specific data point, but understanding and noticing the trends and the observations that you can take from them to then apply and suggest to different managers or departments or for the entire organization as a whole. Would you say that's cool?
I want to speak to a little bit to that too. It's easy to get discouraged when you're seeing data and like, oh my goodness, like this is lower. And even for the manager, like you're being a manager, Dan, like you can probably see your own results from any of these. And you're
sometimes
like, man,
I like it, sometimes I don't. No,
right.
No, it's really, really helpful.
But it is helpful. That's why it's important to build a feedback culture, because you are able to receive this kind of information and say, you know what, here's how I'm going to change, or this is what I need to do. Because in those 4 quadrants that we saw, if that would help each of those 4 quadrants, because it shows your blind spots, or it shows where you're actually doing really well. And so having
Yeah.
tools like this is actually helpful for encouragement and for improvement too. And
Mm.
so we don't have to be afraid of numbers. We just need to use it to know what direction we need to go.
Yeah. Well, Robin, I'm curious. I'd love to hear this from you. And then obviously, again, Nicole,
Yeah.
anything you want to add. But as you're having conversations with our partners who, they're onboarding Leadr, they're really making a concerted effort to invest in their managers, help them be better leaders, really engage and develop their team. Sometimes, do you get any hesitancy or pushback when it comes to insights? And if so, tell us more.
Yeah, I do a little bit, just because there are some organizations out there that maybe have feel like they have a really relational culture, which is incredible, or maybe they haven't ever utilized specific data to be able to
Mm.
show how their team is feeling and doing, which are both not bad things at all. But
Sure.
so jumping into this, when we're able to gather so much information about their team, sometimes it can feel overwhelming, or hey, we don't want to run our team by data. I've heard that before as well.
Mm.
And that's not our intention. Our intention is really to make sure that you know how your team is feeling, which is a hard thing to figure out sometimes, that we can figure out how your team is responding to things like rapport, things like clarity, different pieces within your culture that really helps to make or break your culture if you have or don't have it. And so being able to jump in here really simply, knowing that these surveys are anonymous, which I think is also extra
Yeah,
helpful.
good note. Good note.
Yeah, so that you can really get that honest feedback from your staff in a great way and in a consistent way. And so I think, to your earlier point of, let's say we send out this big survey and we take 6 months to be able to respond to that information is no longer probably relevant or current. And so what I love about this is, even though this might be new for some of you, you're going to get very accurate and current information consistently. So not only do we have a survey that goes out once a month, but also it's going to refresh behind the scenes periodically throughout the day. So as people are answering those surveys, you're going to get a really fresh perspective on how things are going without having to wait, weeks or months to be able to get that information. So even though we are able to gather a lot of information about your team, try not to be too afraid, and we can help you with navigating how to approach this and make sure that you have the information you need. But that's what I would suggest, is just kind of one step at a time. Maybe just pick people metrics, or maybe just pick the engagement analysis to kind of utilize for the next month or so, and then work your way into the other areas too. So
yeah, super helpful. I know I've been in organizations and helped to lead, and also have talked with many partners. And something that you touched on that I want to make sure we highlight is we anecdotally, what we hear most often is important, right? So it is important to understand and have stories and examples of, hey, this is going well, or this isn't going well, and what are we doing about it? But sometimes what we're perceiving is what's actually happening because of those anecdotal items versus what the majority of people are feeling or thinking or engaging with can be very, very different. So I know that we've had partners who they've had, I've talked to managers who thought, man, I'm not doing a great job at all. I'm really missing it. I'm not leading my team well. I feel like I'm really struggling in, these different skills or areas or direction. And then they get the feedback they get the results from Insights. And what they discover is, oh, it's actually going pretty well. Like my team is actually getting what they need. But the inverse is true too. I think there's leaders who are thinking, man, I'm killing it. They look in the mirror at the end of the day and they 2 thumbs up, nailed it. I wouldn't change anything about what happened today. And then they get feedback from the Insights on their team, and what they recognize is, I might feel good about what I did for whatever reason, but my team doesn't have the clarity they need. They don't have the tools that they need to really maximize their role. There's insights that we can gain. And so it gives us this ability to not just operate from nudges and feelings and anecdotes, which are important pieces. So those are things that you need to pay attention to. It gives us the ability to balance that perspective with data around, how is our team actually doing? How engaged are they actually? Who are the people that are really leading well or not leading well. And so I've heard it be really clarifying and actually kind of remove a burden for people, because when we don't know, it's stressful and we just don't have a clear idea of what's actually happening. All right, well, let's shift to this. I have a quote and I want to share it with you all. And then I just want to get your reaction to it as it relates to insights to lead and develop your team. All right, and then we'll answer a couple of questions and spend the rest of the time with the group answering questions. And if not, we'll answer other questions that I come up with, and it'll be great. Or you guys ask questions. Okay. So next slide. I'd love to get your reaction to this. So this is from Steve Jobs, and he says, management is about persuading people to do things they do not want to do, while leadership is about inspiring people to do things they never thought they could. So as it relates to making managers better leaders and leading and developing from insights, does this prompt any other thoughts for you all?
Yeah. Go ahead, Robin.
Nope.
I'll go. No, I'm just kidding. Chester, where you at? Chester, come on.
Well, I think for me, thinking through this quote, we talked about this a little bit earlier, is it makes me very clear on what I don't want to be and what I do want to be as far as a leader goes, where I don't want to. That's exhausting, trying to go around and convince people to do things that they're not really excited about doing. And that's a miss on me as a leader, if that's how it's feeling every day, versus if I'm in a healthy place as a leader, then they're going to know that, they're going to feel that, we're going to be together as a team and be able to work towards things that we're excited about. But also, the best leaders I've ever had have always encouraged me beyond what I feel about myself already. So they speak into me in a great way. They suggest things that they think I might be skilled at. And that's where I know I want to be, where people that are under my leadership feel encouraged and inspired and motivated to do the regular things that we have to do every day as a part of our role, but also looking beyond that and feeling the confidence from a person believing in you that much to be able to take yourself to the next level. So that's what I think about this quote.
Yeah, great perspective. Great perspective. It's interesting because you said lead management is about persuading people to do the things they don't want to do. Actually seems harder to you than leading people. And what's interesting is I think there's this human element about leadership. If we're honest about who we are and what we hope for and where we all want to contribute to something that matters. We all want to do things that are challenging and help us grow. But for a lot of organizations, they're stuck in, or they've always managed. There's all these parameters around industrialization and how we've managed our teams. And so making that shift to leadership is really hard. And so that's why having a tool like Leadr is helpful, because it can give you actual insights into things that are happening. But it's a hard jump to lead people. It's you have to show up differently than just, did you accomplish blank? It's a different topic. All right, Nicole, your thoughts on it. I'd love to hear it.
I see, this is the difference between having relationship and not having relationship. Okay. And management is about persuading people to do things. If you have to persuade someone, like, something's broken between the relationship that you have between that person, in a sense, because the way I see even insights is helpful to know, hey, the questions that are asked here, it says, I am regularly recognized and appreciated for the work I do. If you see low scores on your team, you're going to be persuading people to do things they don't want to do because they don't feel appreciated, recognized, and things like that. But if you pay attention to your people, how they're wired, how they work, and listening to what they're saying through these types of insights and surveys, and actually helping them grow in the areas that they are admitting that they're struggling in, then the sky's the limit on what can happen in your team and what you can pull out of your team when it comes to moving the vision and the purpose and the mission forward within the company. And so I think if leadership is about paying attention to the strengths of your team and drawing the best out of them, and you probably wouldn't even have to inspire, they just naturally would probably do, what needs to be done. But if you're ignoring all the things that comes with the person that's doing the thing, it's going to be like pulling teeth to get results. And so I think about it as relationship. Do you have a relationship, and are you investing in your people as a person? Otherwise, that if you are, you're going to have greater influence, and it'll be more inspiring for the things that you put your hands to and the things you do as a team.
Yeah.
But if not, it's going to be like pulling teeth, because it's like, why should I do this? And I don't even believe in this mission and what we're doing, because I haven't seen that investment in myself. So
yeah, great thoughts and perspective. Great thoughts and perspective. Well, thanks for responding to that. Well, let's do this. Let's shift to Q&A time. So if you're on the webinar right now and you have questions related to utilizing insights to lead and develop your team, feel free to ask those. I will also answer any general question that you might have, but feel free to ask questions so that we can ensure that this time is most helpful for you. What I know about Nicole, Robin, and I is we can talk about a lot of things forever. Okay, so we don't struggle with that ability, but we want to make sure that this time is really valuable for you and is helping you gain insight and clarity into how you can lead and develop your team. So feel free to add those to the chat, and then we will get into some of those questions. There were some questions that were submitted beforehand, so let me grab those real quick and we will take a look. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay, so first line development management program. Here's a question. Someone typed in and said, hey, I just want to learn. I just want to learn, and I want to make sure I can get the most out of Leadr. And so I'm curious, Robin, for you, and then Nicole, for you, as you would be coaching that person of saying, hey, we want to help you get the most value you can out of Leadr. What would you recommend some initial steps they take related to insights or any other piece of the tool? What would you recommend for that person?
Yeah, for me, it's really just using it, like jumping in and actually using it. And starting with one-on-ones is what we usually recommend, because that's the quickest way for you to be able to create that connection with your team, especially if one-on-ones haven't been a part of your everyday culture. So starting there to have those great conversations, maybe ask new questions that you've never asked before. We've got lots of templates within one-on-ones to be able to maybe pull in some fresh questions that might spark a new conversation with your team. And then I also recommend early on from leadership. So if you are a leader, if you are a manager, is asking for feedback from your team directly. How are you, asking, hey, how am I leading you well? What's something I can do differently moving forward? Any additional feedback that you can share with me. That's a big indicator on grabbing that pulse from your team, kind of understanding from the get how they're feeling, how they're doing, and then that will naturally flow into insights as those surveys are going out. You've already got that great pulse from the beginning, and then you can watch that trend over time. So that's usually what I recommend to start off with.
Nice. Nicole, anything you would
yeah. Well, as a person that's in HR, like you want to try to find ways to use this tool throughout your company in different areas. So I use this for onboarding. And so when people come and are onboarded, we are using our learning tool to make sure they learn about our culture. And we ask questions to make sure they understand and see if there's any questions or if they're understanding correctly about our core values and about who we are as a company. And so, and then we use, after our onboarding sessions, we send out a feedback request and say, hey, first of all, I want to ask you some questions about what was presented, but then I also want feedback on my presentation. How was that for you? Are you learning? And so that's why we have I think one of the best onboarding experiences that people can have, just because we continually ask for feedback and we continually use our tool for learning. And that self-pace is helpful too, that people don't feel like they're like, oh, I have to get this done. So that's one of my favorite things about Leadr, is that we don't have to use it for meetings, but we use it throughout our whole company and in different areas. And one of the main things I do use our tool for is for our onboarding process.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for that, and really helpful. I know I can remember a million years ago when I onboarded, and it was
October 4th.
It was October 4th.
2021.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, a lifetime ago. I mean, it was forever ago. But you're right. That is the fact that you knew that off the top of your head is wild. I don't know.
Robin's probably May 5th, May 1st.
I think so. May 4th or 5th. I think it was Garrett's birthday.
Wow. Nice work, Nicole. Nice work. Okay.
I know my people.
All right. Well, let's ask this question then. So what we know is that the people metrics side of it, that all self-populates from how people naturally use the tool, right? So one-on-ones, feedback, goals, etc. But there's a big piece of insights that we don't get any data from unless people actually respond to the monthly survey questions around clarity, maximization, and rapport, and then the quarterly survey question around the ENPS score, which is, what I recommend my organization is a place for family and friends to work at, right? Kind of the, you're at a restaurant, it's like, would I recommend my family and friends eat here? It's kind of the same thing for your organization. So how would you recommend, let's say like the team, they're just not seeing the engagement that they want from filling out those real quick survey questions. What would you all recommend that team do, or that organization do to create more responses to the surveys and to those polls questions?
First and foremost, I would recommend reestablishing the why behind why you've chosen to do that. I think if you're not clear on why it's being done, then why do it is sometimes how people may feel. I know from my past experience, we would have a survey that would go out, every 6 months, and we knew from experience that information was never really utilized, and so a lot of us felt like, well, why should we do it if they're not going to do anything with it? And so I think really establishing, hey, this is the value behind using this survey. We care for you. We want to make sure that you're feeling engaged, that you're clear in your roles, fill in the blank. But so this is the why behind we've chosen to make this a part of our everyday culture. Also, I think too, a second point to that is you have to lead by example. So if you're a part of leadership and you're not answering the survey, then how can you expect your team to do the same? So those would be my two points.
Yeah, great notes. The reminding people the why, here's what we're doing. And then also making sure you do something with what the information actually, the information that you get, right? So it's almost like the only thing you could do worse than not asking for feedback is not implementing or responding to the feedback, right? So really great thoughts there, Robin. Nicole, what about you? What if you see the same thing from the teams?
I think I have two things. One is to get your leaders on board. And so continually speaking to that core group of people who's this survey is basically kind of about, in a sense, and saying, hey, like, this is actually important for your growth and for your development. And so if they're taking it seriously, then their team will take it seriously. So it's getting the team, getting the core leadership, those who are managing and developing people on your team, all on board. And then two, if they see a slowness in response, they can bring it up in their one-on-ones and say, hey, is there a reason why you don't want to? Let me reassure you that this is anonymous. Let me reassure you, make sure that you know that this is actually going to help us and not hurt. There's no repercussions for you saying what you need to say. And so if your leadership is on board, they will probably naturally bring things up because they can see on the back end, hey, all of my team hasn't responded because there's a certain, a number, 5 out of 7 people did not respond, or things like that. And so they can just bring it up. Hey, did you respond in your one-on-ones and keep accountable in that way? But two is actually, making changes after those results come out. They will see, then your company and your people will see, whoa, my opinion does matter. So I'm going to be proactive or make sure I answer these surveys every time they come out because I see my leadership doing something about what I've said, and so it's even good for a leader to say, hey, I noticed that my team was down in this area of clarity. So I want to make sure that that I want to make sure that you have all that you need to succeed in this role. Oh, wow, she listened to me. Okay, that's great feedback. So I think if people are seeing results from what they've answered in the survey, they will be more prone to answer those surveys every time they come out. And it's only 3 questions.
Right. Yeah. Good
easy.
thoughts.
It takes 2 seconds.
Yep. Okay. Helpful. I have a couple of other questions. They might be, this first one might be a little spicy. Okay. So you guys ready for this one?
Yep.
Spicy. Okay. What would you, how to frame this question? How would you recommend organizations or leaders not use insights? Meaning, sometimes there's a fear or a trepidation around, well, they're only asking so they can weaponize this to performance manage me differently, or to be a micromanager, or some of those sorts of things. So what might you say to somebody who is really excited about insights for those reasons?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to jump in. Weaponizing is a great word. You don't want to use this information against them. They're already being vulnerable enough to share their thoughts and feedback about the culture within your organization and how things are feeling. So kind of checking your ego at the door a little bit as a leader, and really digging into why they feel that way. You know, maybe you scored lower on clarity. So what are some ways that you can go in asking to your team to find out a little bit more why behind that, instead of making a blanket announcement of, you guys scored really low on clarity, so you must not be listening. So we need to back that back a little bit and go in asking of, hey, you guys scored really low on clarity this month. You know, I know we've had some, you know, fill in the blank things go on. How can I lead you even better by bringing that clarity on a more consistent basis? So just coming in with great questions to dig into that a little bit more, because that's going to show them a couple things. One, it's going to show them that you're actually utilizing that information to move you guys forward in a great way. And it's going to allow them to feel comfortable even giving feedback in person, not just with the survey. And I think that builds so much trust, so that when tough times do come up, which they will, you're going to have a much more engaged team to work through that together, instead of just putting their hands up and walking away.
Yeah, great thoughts, Robin. It just reminds me of this idea of like lead with curiosity, right? So you're leading with curiosity, not assumptions, or these blanket statements that are could be offensive and uninformed and things like that. So yeah, great thoughts. Nicole, what about you? As you're thinking about that, what would you respond with, or what thoughts do you have?
It's tough, because not everyone wants transparency, and so you want to give it, but then at the same time, not everyone can handle the transparency that's given. So you got to know your team and who they are, and how to, and like, I love what Robin was talking about, is like leading with curiosity, and saying, and putting it on you, and be like, hey, like, what can I do to help you? Instead of like, you're not, like you said, you're not listening. And sometimes too, what I like to do is do skip levels meetings. And because if it is hard, if it is tension, or if there is something that's like hugely negative, it's probably good to be like, hey, like, can you meet with this person so they can give an objective opinion about how I'm doing? Because it's going to be helpful. And that person, you know, I found that's been helpful in the past. If I saw some results and I was like, you know what, let me take care of this, and I'll give you the feedback that I've gotten from your team, and it's actually been helpful. And it kind of like allowed everybody's guards to be down, so they can be a little bit more honest and truthful about where they're at.
Yeah, you're such an asset in that you really pay attention to and help ensure everybody has what they need and is being led well. So I really appreciate that and have benefited from it as well. You remind me of both of you. It's an older book, but Jim Collins' Good to Great, and he talks about level 5 leaders, right? And it talks about this idea of, we look in the mirror before we look out the window. So the idea that we're reflecting on ourselves, where have maybe we missed, or where could we improve, or you know, engage in a little bit different way, versus just looking out the window and making assessments or blame or any of those things. The first thing we do is look in the window. And I think if you approach those sorts of conversations with a, hey, I want to know how I can get better. I want to know how I can help lead you better. What do you need from me that you're not getting? Those sorts of intentions, I think, really comes across to the team. So good ideas there. What about this? Okay, here's another one. This is not as spicy maybe, but still maybe interesting. What if consistently, you know, maybe at an executive level, you're looking through the data and you notice, man, there's this one team or department that is consistently just scoring really, really low. I mean, they aren't engaged well, and then their eNPS score is showing that there's not a lot of people who are for what's happening there. When do you need to potentially change leadership? What do you need to do connected to some of those trends that are consistently lower? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I would recommend making sure that the communication between that person and their manager is consistent. So are they having one-on-ones? Are they talking through their leadership and their approach to their team? I would start there. If those conversations are consistent, then maybe the right questions haven't been asked yet. So maybe they need to dig in a little bit deeper to how things are actually going. And then another way you can do it as well is, of course, letting that manager know first, but sending out a feedback request to the team and try to dig in a little bit more into the details of why they're feeling that way, making a safe place for them to share that, because it could be something really simple, really, that maybe ballooned into something bigger that we can address and simply fix and be able to move on in a great way. I think if all of those things have been done and it's still not changing, then that's when maybe more different conversations should be taking place.
Yeah, good idea. I also what I appreciate about Insights is you can see your own team, and so you're not able to see other departments, right? If you just have your one team, you're not able to see that executive level of things. But having a perspective from somebody higher in the organization who has different visibility can really help to highlight, hey, comparatively, the rest of the company, or a majority of the company, is here, and what we're seeing is here. Any ideas, right? So engaging that conversation, as you talked about.
Well, that's a great example from, like, even this week, I brought up to our senior leadership team. I'm like, we're doing great here, 5s and 4s all across, but I just noticed this team was a little tiny bit down.
Yeah.
It's no big deal because it's still good, but I still want to mention it just to say, hey, compared to everyone else, this is a little bit lower. So you might want to look into it so it won't be a problem down the road. And so like we've been in leadership, we've been talking about addressing the first straws, and so not letting it go down the line of, hey, like, whoa, it's been 5 months and you've been trending down here, but we want to see it at that first dip, and we want to talk about it at that next dip and that next dips. And so there's a constant continual conversation. So there's no surprises if we have to say, hey, we need to transition you out of this role.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Okay. Here's a question that came in, and we're getting close. So if we haven't addressed the question that you want to hit, if you're on the webinar, please be sure and send those in so that we make sure we hit it. But the question is, what are some tips to move our culture to embrace sharing feedback with each other, especially up and down the org chart?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first, Nicole?
Yeah, well,
I feel like Nicole's sitting on something. She was like, "Yo, I got something to say."
Well, coming from a culture where I couldn't give feedback, or else I felt like I got in trouble, it's all about, does the leadership do it first? Do they give feedback, or do they ask for the feedback? And when they hear something that's kind of hard, how do they respond to that? And so I think it comes up from the tippy top and it goes down, because that's one big tip, is making sure that whoever the people that are spearheading the company or the organization, they have that mentality, that value, and that standard to really have and show and exemplify the fact that they can take feedback well, they can change and pivot when necessary on that feedback, and they can give it with respect and great decorum. You know what I'm saying? So I think it starts up top. That's a great tip. But then also we have our tool that you can use too. So I'll let Robin explain a little bit more, whatever she has to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, leadership, like leading with vulnerability and a desire to grow, I think goes so far. But feedback it can be weird.
It's tough.
Right? I mean, it can be weird, especially if it's been handled poorly, or it can be seen as someone who's maybe sowing discord, or creating frustration or challenge. And the bummer is there's so much that's missed when you don't get feedback from your team. And so, it can be creating that, like, one step at a time, as you noted from the top, is really good. Robin, what about you? If you were encouraging ways to, like, create a culture of feedback, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I love what Nicole said about it starting at the top, because that's really, really true. If me as a leader, if I am not asking for feedback from my team, then I can't really expect them to trust me enough to ask feedback from me. And so starting from the top, I think, is really helpful, and to consistently do that. So not just do it one time, but to do it maybe once a month, or do it every other month, to kind of reset the stage for how things are going, and ask the thoughts of the team. I think that that's really helpful to because it also helps those that maybe have come from a poor feedback culture, which I know Nicole has, I have, I can assume, Dan, that you have too, where sometimes feedback has come at not a great experience, or it wasn't done in a kind way, or you didn't walk away feeling encouraged afterwards. And so I think consistently going in, and even starting out simple, like maybe start with 2 questions that that you ask on a regular basis, and then that will really set the stage for them trusting you enough and trusting leadership enough to be able to continue to share thoughts from their point of view as well.
Yeah, I do think it reminds me of Courtney and I did a webinar a couple months ago, and we were talking about challenging conversations, right? And one of the things that we noted in there is that sometimes just sharing your intent can be really helpful. So even just sharing the intent of, hey, here's something I've noticed. I've noticed that giving and receiving feedback isn't necessarily something that feels easy to do or obvious or is shared in a positive way. And I think we're really missing an opportunity to grow together and to learn more about how we can be better individually as well as a team. And so I'm going to start asking for feedback more consistently. And I recognize that you might not feel safe giving it. I recognize it might feel weird. I recognize you might have more than enough feedback to give me, and you've just been waiting for the opportunity. But I want to hear from you, and I'm curious about what you're thinking and feeling. And so when I'm asking, just know that I'm looking to improve as well, because I want to help us as an organization grow in that. So I think just sometimes kind of saying the unsaid thing is an opportunity that we miss. We just don't just come right out and say, hey, here's what I'm looking at, and here's what I'm trying to understand. And just saying that out loud and pointing everybody's attention to it can be helpful. I think, there's some resources. Well, we have some other, it looks like there's some resources being shared in the chat. There's so much around how to do feedback well, and how to do it poorly. And so it's definitely worth noting. Okay. Well, look at this. The time has flown, pals. We're already like right there.
This has been so fun.
It's been good. So let's do what I'm going to come back to you for is any last thoughts. But as a note for anybody who's watching or engaged here, I just want to share about, you're like, hey, insights. Sounds like I can get a lot of things. Again, it's yours if you want it. But if you have, if you're a Leadr customer and you don't have insights, go ahead and you can reach out to us. If you are looking to understand it a bit more or get some coaching around it, feel free to reach out to your customer success manager, or you can shoot us an email at success@leadr.com. And then if you aren't a Leadr customer and you're curious about learning more, feel free to reach out to us there. But that is how you can get in touch with us to further engage insights and Leadr for your team. All right, last thoughts. Robin, is there any, sometimes I like the last 5% question, right? So anything that you haven't said that you want to make sure you say, or anything that you've said that you want to make sure, let's remember that thing. And then we'll come to you, Nicole. So last 5%, Robin.
Yeah, I think something that, again, that you've said often is clarity is kindness. I think that ties into insights, and that ties into insights. It ties into feedback. It ties into one-on-ones. Really, how to be a great leader is making sure that you're being really clear with your team on what you said and what my intention is. What is my intention as a leader, and how do I want them to walk away feeling once they've been under my leadership? And it's just been so incredible to hear all the amazing stories from our partners out there. But that's probably the biggest thing that sticks with me is, being clear with your team and being that just breeds so much kindness and so much trust with them to be able to have a great experience.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Nicole, what about you? Last 5%.
Yeah, I just want to continue to encourage everybody to continue to care for your team, and you'll get the results that you want if you continue to care for your team. I think of it as an honor that I get to care for the heart of the company, because the engine needs to keep running in order for it to be an impact outside of these four walls. And so if the heart's not healthy, then the rest of the body is not. And so that's, if you take care of the heart, if you take care of your people, take care of the core, you will get the results that you do need, because you created healthy feedback, you're creating goals, you're inputting into your people. And that's one of the greatest things of a healthy work culture and a healthy work environment. So I just want to continue to have people use Leadr to really develop your people. If you don't have Leadr, get Leadr as soon as possible so you can start investing into your people. Because if you keep your people healthy, you'll get the results that you need. So
yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's that fourth quadrant. So maybe last thought for me, that the Leadr quadrant, which is high investment and high performance. It's the whole idea of like radical candor, right? We care personally and we challenge directly. And so if we can live in that space where we care tremendously about our people and we also care enough that they do well, it's all good. So anyway, thanks for the time. We'll be bringing you more webinars. But Nicole and Raman, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share your wisdom and your insights about insights with me and with everybody who is joining us here. So anyway, have a great day, everybody. We'll see